welcome to a little tutorial on the Missouri Bandmasters Association Missouri All-State Materials Set 2. It's the year 2021 and we're gonna have a grand time with this. The Set 2 has been the same since I was in high school a million years ago, so chances are it will be the same in 2025. So you can see I have all of my years color coded, so let's dig into the stuff that's marked orange. We'll go in order from page 3 and 23 of the Rose 32 etudes, and then we'll move on to the Closet. And you can find a performance of all these pieces in a separate video. This is just a breakdown of all the little things you need to know to successfully play these pieces. Let's get past the scales and come back for you later, Closet. All right, here we are with number 2, page 3 of the Rose 32 etudes. So I think I took my performance at a pretty brisk tempo, but the reason I took it at such a brisk tempo is so that I can go from here to here without breathing. So this would be my first place to breathe, and then I can make it from here to here, also without breathing. And if I were playing the whole etude, I would probably breathe here and there one more time. And I was playing this at dotted quarter note equals 72. It's a pretty good goal, but I think a very accessible goal would be 66. I think if you can play it at 66, you're doing pretty well. And when I play it, I use the triplet subdivisions on my metronome to get down to 66. Etc., etc. So having it at 66 with triplet subdivisions ensures that you are thinking about the big beats, the beginnings of each bar will land at the right time, and all your 16th notes will be quite even. So remember that dotted quarter note equals 66 with triplets. Cool. All right. So this is luckily in a really nice key, right? We're in C major with some little adventures in the sharp territory. So we're probably drifting in and out of A minor a little bit. In fact, if you go on to the second section, we have this section in A minor. So this is in C, and eventually down here after our second breath, we'll be in A minor. Cool. So not much to know here. Da, 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 dia, da, da, da. Really lean on your articulations. They'll really help keep things even. You don't want to slur the whole thing because you will have to come back and articulate things, and grouping things in twos is really helpful. In fact, when you're starting to learn it, you might want to put a little bit of weight on the front ends of each group, each eighth note worth of time. Watch out for these little sharps. Da da dee da da, and this is a B natural for all of you B flat fans out there, making sure you're jumping back over the break to play a B natural before coming back down to A. D sharp is the same as E flat. I do this one with the side key, but the location of this note is such that you could do it with either the side key or with your banana key. So go for it, whatever is comfortable. And back to D natural here. And a nice G major chord. If you're keeping score at home and you like practicing your arpeggios and you know what a G major chord is, or you play piano, there it is, a G major chord. And a little scale. Dee, 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 dee. And then we have a big long C major scale all the way down. G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Good. So I know this says staccato over the top, but don't get too overwhelmed by this. Don't put so much emphasis on playing ta 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 ta. Hopefully you'll be at a speed where actually the speed will take care of the shortness itself. So I actually think of a legato articulation when I am playing this, because the speed will take care of the shortness. I'm drawing little lines around all those dots to remind myself not to play it too short, not to play it too pecky. And if you play it too pecky, chances are what'll happen is you'll get tongue-tied and you'll end up going blip, 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 blip. So really work on making your legato articulations clean and clear. Dum, be, dee, dee, dee. More scales. And then we have an F to an F sharp. For this F sharp, you definitely want to use your chromatic side F sharp fingering. So I'm putting an S there to remind myself to play with my side fingering. And then a nice C major chord. Again, for those keeping track at home. And this, in the old edition, is really hard to read. It is a B. If you're wondering if it's a B or an A, it is a B. Make sure you're playing a B right there. Dee, 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 dee. Now we're gonna have a little adventure into F major because we have a B flat here. Woohoo! F major chord. F major chord, and then we have a little diminished F sharp diminished chord. We see this chord a lot in Weber. So if you've ever played the Weber concertino, you know that how this chord goes. You've played it a bazillion times. And now we're moving back into C with a little broken chord action. G, C, D, 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 D. And so the same principle about staccato applies here as it did here. So don't worry about playing these super short, because the shorter you try to play them, the more tongue-tied you're likely to become. So make sure you're practicing it legato. Even at your slow tempo, you should be playing dee da 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 dee da dee da 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 as legato as possible, just for pure accuracy. And also when you speed up, you won't have to worry about it being so crisp. We have a C major chord here and then a G7 chord here. We're resolving. We have a perfect authentic cadence happening, a PAC, if you will. PAC. Yeah. So this little D grace note is just a little flick. So don't worry about that too much. If the grace note bothers you while you're learning it, just take it out. Take it out and add it back in later when you're more comfortable with it. And you'll want to take a big honking breath here on this nice 8th note. And then we have a dotted 16th note, 32nd note combination, which when we're thinking about in 8th notes, dee dee dee, dum ba dum, it's not unlike a 16th note or dotted 8th note, 16th note combination. And when we're thinking about quarter notes as our beat, dum da dum, but that's how that goes. And now we're in our A minor journey. That's why these D sharps are here, because D sharp is in the key of E, which is the dominant chord of A. So that's why we see a lot of D sharps in this section and G sharps, because we're taking a little trip into A minor. Cool. So we have an A minor arpeggio followed by a little E melodic minor, just in case you are ever wondering when you are ever going to use a melodic minor scale. Boom, there it is. This is a little melodic minor moment. Yeah, da dee da dee da dee 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 dee. Cool. And don't forget that this G sharp carries through the bar. I'm gonna go ahead and outline that a little bit. And I would play this B with my right pinky just to streamline things so that I can just lift my right pinky up for that D and not worry so much about picking up all my fingers. F, E, D, C, B, A. So we have a bunch of little A minor scales, little G sharp. There's an E major chord. Again, for those keeping score at home with your chord progression, we got E, which is the dominant of A. Dee da 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 dee 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 da da dum ba dum. So we have another one of those dotted 16th plus 32nd note, which again, you're going to think about like that in a quarter note moment, right? It's the same kind of value when you're subdividing. Do, 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 dee, 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 dee. You got a nice little G sharp minor chord here. And G sharp, half diminished chord. Yeah, cool. And then C, E, A, C, E, a little A minor chord. And this is the same thing, dum ba dum, bum ba dum, dum da dum. We've got that rhythm going on a lot. When we don't have straight 16th notes in this etude, it's typically bum ba dum, dum ba dum, dum ba dum. Except this one is different, right? So this one has a slur all over the group of 4, and this one only has a slur over 3. Be da dum ta ta. So make sure you're going ta ta there. You're articulating those. Dee 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 body bum bum. All right, and we have reached the end of our excerpt for this etude. I'm laying in A minor, and don't forget your G sharps and D sharps, C natural. That one drives me crazy. It might not drive you crazy, but I think I always want to give it a little piggity third there at the end for some reason, so don't do that. All right, so that's all I really have to say about this etude. Now let's move on to the slow etude that you guys have to play, which is number 23. 23 is a weird etude. It's actually probably my least favorite in the entire book of 32 etudes. If you have the opportunity to learn the 32 etudes either with your teacher or on your own, I really recommend exploring other etudes. So like I said, this is my least favorite etude, but that's kind of the challenge of making music, right? That you still have to be able to make beautiful moments out of things that you're not necessarily fond of or that you're particularly enjoying. So we'll do our best with this one. So the first thing I notice when I look at number 23 is that we have 2 different tempo markings. We have andante con moto, which means kind of at a walking speed, but with motion. So con moto can be interpreted in a couple of different ways. I kind of see it as like a rubato, or like, you know, the time is flexible, but on the forward side of things. Like we want to keep moving forward. It's not stagnant. We're going to keep moving along. And then down here we have adagio. So these are going to be 2 distinctly different tempos. This is just like a little introduction for this etude. So I think of this one, the andante con moto. Whoop, too many subdivisions. I like quarter note equals 92. And you might want 8th note subdivisions, especially when you get here. We'll get to that in a second. So it starts on E flat, so don't forget that. We are in E flat major. So definitely don't start that with a big splat D, E natural. That's never good. And you know what? I've heard it a lot as a judge. So make sure you're playing that in E flat, D, E flat major chord. Going up, E, G, B flat, E flat. If you think you're going to miss any of these flats, go ahead and mark them. There's no shame in marking your accidentals, only shame in missing them. Don't miss them. E flat, G, B flat, E flat. This is an E flat. If you have a hard time reading that many ledger lines, go ahead and write yourself a note that that is an E flat. And make sure you're fingering it with a forked fingering. This is my symbol for fork. It's a fork. Go ahead and finger that with your first finger on your right hand and the sliver key with your ring finger. Playing high E flat with your middle finger is a no-no. It doesn't actually work. It's like a quarter tone flat. So it's very flat. It doesn't actually work as a real fingering for E flat. E flat, D, C, B flat, A flat. Again, if this is a lot of flats for you, if you're not used to seeing this many flats in your key signature, go ahead and write them in so that you don't miss them. B flat. Do, 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 do. We have a nice B flat major chord here. So we have a fermata here and a fermata here, which kind of implies that these triplet 16th notes don't need to be perfectly in time. You do want to make sure they have a nice triplety feel to it. So even if you're being dramatic about it, dee 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 dee, da da dee da da dum. Definitely have your dee da 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 dum. Make sure you're bringing out the triplet aspect of those notes. And it says pianissimo, but don't worry too much about that. Just give it a good decrescendo. And if it lands on pianissimo, great. If not, at least you're showing that you are making some kind of contrast from this low D to this high B flat. And then you can breathe. Breathe. Take time here. You do not need to keep going immediately. And so this next section, it's like they took it up a half step, right? From E flat, or down, E flat to D. D, and this is a C sharp. Again, I know in a lot of the old editions, it's hard to read. It's definitely a C sharp. D, C sharp, D, C sharp, D, C sharp, D. Nice B flat major chord. D, F, B flat, G, D, F, B flat, D. And with both of these, we really want to go to these high notes like they're the peak of our phrase. Da, da, da. If you want to use the one and one fingering for B flat, you can. It's really convenient going from F to B flat to D. But it's not necessarily. If you have really good dexterity and you're good at reaching your side B flat, that is great. Good for you. I use my side B flat because to me this is too slow and too sustained for my 1-and-1 B flat. My 1-and-1 B flat is really only good for acrobatic moments where I'm just going to like blow past it really fast. So keep that in mind as well. B flat, A flat, G, F, E flat, D, C, D, E flat. A nice E flat major chord here. Same kind of rules apply from here. Then we have a fermata on both E flats, which means you can kind of take your time. Just make sure you're giving these a really good triplety feel. D, da da dee da da da. Good. And take a nice big breath here. And not just take a nice big breath, but recognize that you're about to change tempos as well. You're going from andante con moto to adagio. And when you're practicing this at home, you can totally stop and change your metronome. You don't need to just try and pretend to make it work with 92 beats per minute. Might be a little bit brisk. All right, I like this tempo. So I'm going to write that down. Quarter note equals 56. And you're definitely going to want your eighth note subdivisions. Counting 56 in quarter notes on your own with your own brain is way too much work. It's too much work for me. It's too much work for your teacher. It's too much for everybody. So please, for the love of everything, turn on your subdivisions. So when we think of this in subs, this dotted quarter note suddenly has 3 clicks instead of just 1.5. 3 is easier to count than 1.5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, da 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 da. Dee, 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 da. Cool. This is a little bit easier to understand, I think. And don't forget all your flats again, and that this is an E flat. It's the same note as that, which means you want to use that forked fingering 1 and sliver key in the right hand. And these are also E flats. If you are worried about missing your flats, again, just write them in. Write them in. Write them in. Okay. And this is such a lovely little phrase. And then we have a crescendo to nowhere. To me, this crescendo continues. And it's not, I always like take this piano out and do that. That's the way I prefer to phrase this moment. But if you are worried about your air support, you might want to take this very seriously and crescendo to the B flat and then do a decrescendo so you have time to breathe. It is more impressive though if you can go B flat to E and then keep going without a breath, because this interval is hard and breaking it up makes it easier. So if you can do this without breathing here, that's great, but if you need it, make sure you're doing a crescendo into this B flat and then decrescendoing so that you're setting yourself up for a good breath, and then you can start here at piano again. And crescendo to your E flat. So this is fun, right? Super fun. These are 30-second notes. Not 16th notes. So we have 16th notes here. Dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dum. Dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dum. So make sure. Do 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 dee da da dee dee dee. That you're getting those notes in there. I know it's hard. I know these notes are hard. So you might want to spend some time isolating this chunk. So practicing it on its own before you even dive into the rest of this etude, right? You can start here and go really slow. You can go half speed. Da 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 dum da dee 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 dee. Pick a tempo where you can play this successfully. If it's half tempo, that's fine. As long as you can play it without making any mistakes, and try to do 10 repetitions per day of that until you feel comfortable increasing the tempo, or 5, you know, whatever you have time for. As long as the repetitions are successful and daily, this will improve really quickly. Now we have this da dee dee. You definitely want to use your fork chromatic F sharp fingering for that. Dum, ba-yum, dum, ba-yum. So that grace note A flat is that grace note A is an A flat. So if these grace notes are giving you a hard time, just leave them out for a while and add them back in later. But that's kind of how it goes. Dee, dee, da, 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 dum, ba-dee-ya, da, 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 dum, ba-dee-ya, da, 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 dum. And with an A flat, I've heard this a lot of times with an A natural there, and it's subtle, and you might not think we don't notice, but we totally notice. We can totally hear that. So play an A flat. Da 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 dee 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 dee, ba dee dee ba da dum. And this is another quick little grace note. Ya da dum, da dee dum ya da dum. Like every other grace note we've talked about today. If it gives you a hard time, if it makes you nervous, if it makes you scared, take it out for a while and then add it back in later. And E flats. So many E flats. And then we have some fun. Some finger wiggling fun. Da dee 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 da 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 dum bum dee da 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 dee da da dum dum dum. Okay, I know you're looking at this measure and thinking, oh God, why is there so much black stuff? Don't panic. It's really not so bad. So, what I like to do with moments like this is break down the rhythm into digestible chunks. So we're going to draw big, bold lines where all the quarter notes begin. And you can tell where the quarter notes begin because they're all beamed correctly. So this group of notes is a quarter note's worth of time. This group of notes is a quarter note of time. This one is beamed a little bit differently because of the 16th notes. So this is a quarter note of time. Dum dum, dee dee dee. And then the next quarter note starts here on this A. Dee da 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 dum. All right, we do have 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You can always go back and check your math that way because we're in 4/4 or common time. And now we're gonna go in and write the 8th notes so we know where every single little click is gonna go. And we're going to do that with slightly smaller lines, shorter lines. Dee, 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 dee. And the next one is on the E. Do, 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 dum, dum, dee. And this 8th note begins on this group of 30-second notes. Dee, 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 da, 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 dum. All right, so that's where all the clicks will happen in this measure. I know it can be really hard to get off of this tie if the tie is bothering you. This is kind of a theme going on here. If the tie is bothering you, if the grace notes are bothering you, these are things you can take out. while you're practicing ta ta da 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 ta da 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 ta da 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 ta ta. It might be helpful to just slur the groups. Ta 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 da 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 ta da 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 ta da 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 ta. T da 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 ta da 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 ta da 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 ta 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 da ta da ta ta da 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 ta da 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 ta da da da. So much to think about. Ta ta da 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 ta da 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 ta da 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 ta 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 da 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 ta da 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 ta da 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 ta tum tum ta da 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 ta da 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 ta da 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 tum. Got a little bouncy ball. Tum da 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 dum da 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 dum. Okay, so that's where it all kind of maps out with eighth notes. Otherwise, this is really not scary. These are just B flat major scales. Because you can see there are A naturals written in. A naturals, A naturals. The A naturals carry through the bar and through the octaves, actually, but it's I gave you this nice little reminder. But yeah, these are just scales with E flats and B flats, making them B flat major scales. We know they're B flat major scales and not G minor scales because it lands on a B flat here. The K takes you to a B flat. Okay. Bum bum. And I know A to E flat is not the most kind of fingering shifts. So take advantage of the fact that you have some space here. These notes land here, and then you re-articulate this E flat. So you're gonna have to go from A, thumb 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 to your forked E flat fingering, tum ta. So make sure you're using that space between the articulated notes to make that E flat fingering happen. Don't cheat and use that middle finger E flat. It'll be really apparent with a jump this big. Your adjudicator will hear, wow, that's flat. They must be using the wrong fingering, and they will totally dock your score. So make sure you're using the correct fingering there. Whew, we made it. All right. And then we have a very sweet little tune happening. Da, dee, 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 da, 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 dee, 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 da, dee, dee, da, dee, dee, dee. All right. I don't think there's much to break down here except to make sure that you are playing with all your flats. B flats, and there are lots of A flats in this section. So make sure you're not missing any of your A flats. They carry through the measures. They're everywhere. And your B flats and your E flats. Just all the flats. Make sure you're getting all those stinking flats. We're having a little chromatic moment here. That's nice. G, E flat, A flat, E flat. And you get to breathe before doing a nice big E flat major chord here, or E flat major arpeggio. So this B flat is the 16th note, and all of these other notes are 32nd notes. Dum digga da digga digga dum, dum digga 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 dum, dum digga 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 dum. So make sure you're putting all your eighth notes in the right spot. Let's go ahead and chart that out real fast. So yeah, eighth note, 2 eighth notes. So we'll just put that little line somewhere in the middle there. One, two. Wait a minute. Oh, that's right. The measure's not over yet. I was like having a moment like, there aren't enough beats in this measure. I'm insane. All right, because in the last quarter note is there. D, 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 D. Okay. Woo! Mama. Dum digga 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 da da da. Dum digga 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 da. Dee 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 dee. So there's a lot going on in this one measure. This is another spot where you might want to isolate and spend a little time making sure that every eighth note is accounted for and all the notes are in exactly the right place. So you get to chill up here for a little bit on this high E flat. Dum digga 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 da dee 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 dee. This, I don't know why this tie is here. It's confusing. I always scratch that out because it's not a tie because you're going from E flat to D. It should just be slurred. D, 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 D. And make sure these are definitely triplets, that they have a very distinct feel against these duple 16th notes. D, 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 D. Cool. Bum, bum. Da, dee, 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 dee. Now don't forget that a tied quarter note to eighth note is the same as a dotted quarter note. So you might want to go ahead and write in lines, even over sustained things, to make sure that you're counting everything correctly. Counting sustains is just as important in your audition as counting fast, technical, and rhythmically interesting sections, because it shows that you're paying attention and that you really have taken the care to learn every single bit of the piece of music that you're auditioning with. So make sure you're counting every single little thing, even when it's not so little, right? Great. All right, we're gonna keep going. This line is so weird. I think even in my adulthood, when I get to this measure, I always get to it and wonder, what the heck? What is going on? It's so strange. And you just have to make sure you know what every single note is. E flat, and then that is a tie to another E flat. And then these are triplets. There is no little 3 on them, but they are triplets, and I can tell that because they are grouped together and because that's how the math works out of this measure. So make sure that you are playing them as triplets. If you need to write in little 3s, oh my gosh, please write in little 3s. And these are articulated. I know we always see these like slurs and staccatos, like what the heck does that mean? It just means a legato tongue. T, D, da, D, 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 da, 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 da. So just make sure you're giving a little bit of articulation. D, 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 da, D, da, D, D, D. And that all the beats are in the right spot. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself some little dashes, so I know where everything is. Good. E, high E flat, and it's B flat, B flat, and we have A naturals. So now we have A naturals that carry through the measure. F, A natural, C, and we still have E flats, right? The last E we saw was flat. Yep, there it is. A natural, C, which means you're gonna have to play with your left hand, since the next note is an E flat, which you'll play with your right hand. Now here's a fun moment where you actually get to flip. You're gonna wanna play that G flat with your middle finger. Remember, G flat's the same as F sharp. And then you're gonna flip back to first finger for the F natural. Ba-dee-dee. And then B flat. Right? Yeah, the last B we saw was flat. And the last A we saw was natural. A natural. C, E flat. And the last G we saw, again, was flat. The G flat carries through the measure. This is a really long measure. It goes from here to here. There are only 2 measures in this line. And that's why it's really important to keep track of all your accidentals, because you might miss it from here to here. It's a lot going on. And it's all in triplets. And you have this fun rest, right? Dee, 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 bum, ba, da, dee, da, dee. Da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, rest, da, 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 dee, 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 dee. And this is a transition you'll definitely want to practice with your metronome. If you need to breathe there, you totally can. It's a lot going on. And this is not a ton of time, so you might want to skip breathing here and wait till you get here and just whoop, drop that 16th note. Da dee 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 dee. Going back and forth from triples to duples, not for the faint at heart. Da 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 dee da dee 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 dee. Yeah. So make sure that you're doing that really well. Going from triples to duples seamlessly, but also differently, so that you can hear a difference between these notes and these notes. Yes, very good. You got E flats and B flats Oh, and there's an E natural here, but then they made up for it here. E flat, A naturals, and a nice little B flat major descent to this F. I don't like this breath mark. It makes sense because of the phrasing, but I would skip it because the chances of you actually doing it on time are not high. Da da dee da dee dum bum. So you have a little crescendo here, but you want to make a big deal about it. Dee 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 doo da dee. And I think these sustains are probably a lot longer than you think they are. So each half note is gonna get 4 clicks. Dee dum da da dee da 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 dum 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 da dee da dum. Dee da dee dum. Yeah, that's where everything goes in that section. Dum da dee da da. Nice E flat major chord. Da yee. You definitely got to use your fork fingering on that G flat because you have an F natural coming up right after it. Remember, G flat is the same as F sharp. Dum da wa ba dee da 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 dum. When I'm practicing this, I do it in little groups of 2s. And it's really hard to make that F come out after playing up high for so long. So I give myself like a little accent and a reminder to play that forte. Dum da dee da dum dum ta 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 dum dee. And I know all of you musically minded people might think that this is a good opportunity to slow down, but don't do it. Keep going because we have more stuff. The phrase is not over yet. We're actually making a retransition back to the main theme. Hooray! So make sure you're not slowing down, that you're keeping the momentum moving forward. Bum ta ta ta. And I think of it this way as well. Da yum dum dee dee dum dee dee da 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 da. So we do have a retardando e diminuendo here, which translates into that, and then I have a backwards arrow to remind myself to really slow down there. Da 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 dee 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 dee. You're gonna want to practice doing that over your metronome, just so that you get back to your odd tempo. Right here. Dum dee 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 dum da da dum dum da 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 ya da dee dee da 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 dum. And we've got the same stuff from the beginning. Don't forget that these are little triplets. Like, even though you don't say the number 3 under them, still triplets. Got a lot of the same stuff at the beginning, but then some different stuff too. Ya da da ya da 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 dim digga 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 dum. Yay. A little chromatic moment. Da 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 dum dig digga 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 dum. These are, again, I know it's really hard to read, but this is a 16th note, this F is a 16th note, and these are 32nd notes. So, there are your counts for this measure. Da ding digga 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 dum. Da dum da dum. Dee dee da dee da 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 dee digga 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 dum. Da dee ba da da dum da 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 yum da 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 dum. big dramatic moment. So we have crescendo starting here. So I don't like reading words when I'm also trying to read music, so I always draw the symbols in over the words to make my life a little bit easier. This is molto allargando e crescendo. Allargando is like a really dramatic ritardando. So you really, 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 really want to slow down here. Da da dum 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 bum. And you want to make sure you're connecting these two notes. There is an articulation here, but you get to, and I know you might think you can breathe there. Don't do it. Nope, don't breathe there. Wait till after you play this B flat, dum. You've got some time now. The thing about this allargando is that there is no a tempo, so it's not like you have to get back here and suddenly play like back in your original tempo. You're still gonna be a little bit slower than you would have been otherwise. You have a moment. You have time to breathe here. Dum, dum, dee, 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 dum, da, da, dee, da, da, dee. And you know, now we have eighth note triplets, and they're gonna feel like quarter note triplets with your subs on. But just make it, like I said, you're going to be a little bit slower here. Just make it so that there's a very big difference between these triples and this duple rhythm. So make it at least feel like a triplet. If we're thinking about it in time though, dee, dun, 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 dun. Quarter notes. Dun, ding, dun, dun, dun. The eighth note is somewhere in there, somewhere after the second eighth note of each triplet group. Just do your best. Dun, 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 dun. And don't shortchange these last notes. I know you're gonna feel tired. I know you're gonna want to quit, but don't. If anything, play them a little longer. Just so that you actually make it all the way through and you're not giving in to any kind of tiredness. Whew, I know we really like marked this piece, this etude up all the heck. But now we've got all the answers. This is everything you need to know about this etude. You might want to take like a screenshot or something and then use it for your own benefit. Okay, made it through the rose stuff. Let's do some close. All right, so close. Fun fact, I believe close taught Rose, or Rose taught close, one way or the other. They had a teacher-student relationship, which is pretty cool, in Paris. So this year we're doing E major, or this set we're doing E major for our third exercise. I know it's a little bit daunting because it gets kind of high and there are a lot of sharps. So remember, there are only 4 sharps in E major. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. So don't get super overwhelmed by it. And for some reason, this exercise starts up in the throat tone E instead of on the low E. It's a missed opportunity in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. So make sure you're catching all these and that they are carrying through. So E, G sharp, F sharp, A, G sharp, A, B, A, C sharp, B, D sharp, C sharp. And because we have these D sharps in here, we're going to go ahead and write R over all of our D sharps so that we can determine what to do with our pinky. So they're going to be 2 on the ascent and 2 on the descent. So that means that C sharp's going to have to be with the left hand. It's not so bad. It also means this B is with the left hand, which means this C sharp is with the right hand. So it's important that we trace it back as far as we need to make sure that all of our pinky notes are accounted for. So just to keep things the same, I would do this B with the left hand. B, A, C sharp, B, D sharp, C sharp, E, D sharp, F sharp, E, G sharp, F sharp. Go ahead and write them in. A, G sharp, A. I lost track of the tune. It's fine. F sharp, A, G sharp, B, A, C sharp, B, D sharp. Again, like we were talking about with the other etude in E flat major, D sharp and E flat are the same enharmonic pitch, so they have the same fingerings. And so you're going to want to finger this one with your first finger and your sliver key in the right hand. Do not use the middle finger. Not a real fingering. We'll just go ahead and put a fork there, a little fork symbol. C sharp, E, D sharp, F sharp, E. All right, so we made it to the top, and now we're gonna go back down again. F sharp. If you need these high fingerings, go to my website. I have a fingering chart that you can use to find all of these terrible high fingerings. Great. And E, so that's back at the tonic. We're gonna make our way down, and again, don't forget that accidentals carry through the measure. C sharp, D sharp, B, C sharp, A, B, G sharp, A, F sharp, G sharp, E, F sharp, D sharp. So now we're back to our D sharp with the pinky realm. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those two D sharps, which means we're going to have to mark pinkies around it. So there's a C sharp before this D sharp, left, and then the B, whoop, also left. There is no real sliding in clarinet playing, although with one of these close A exercises, you do get to slide, for better or worse. I actually really hate it, but it is what it is. Right hand, C sharp, A. You might be tempted to play A sharp. Don't. It is A natural. A, B, G sharp, A, F sharp, G sharp, E, F sharp, D sharp, E. All right, made it to the end of those thirds. Oh yeah, and tempos. I think whatever it takes to be successful is the tempo you should do, so make sure it's not too fast. It is better to play slow and successfully than it is to play fast and brave and to like just really wreck it. It's like pick a tempo that you can actually do. I think I was doing it at about 60. I think, maybe, I don't remember anymore, but I think in my own personal practice, I play my thirds at about 132 beats per minute, which is probably not going to be accessible to you, so make sure that you're doing a tempo you can do. 60, I think, is an admirable goal. And you'll definitely want with your subdivisions. If you want to go slower than 60, I recommend just converting yourself to an eighth note tempo. So like starting at eighth note equals 100 instead of quarter note equals 50. Cool. Now, moving on to these broken chords of the tonic and its inversions in all keys. So this is like a weird chunk for set 2. We have this line, line 4, and then these like 2 1/4 lines. So here we have chords in E flat major. This is where you get to do all your E flat major chord studying that also benefits your slow etude. That's kind of the cool thing about practicing your scales, thirds, and arpeggios alongside of all these etudes is that everything works together. Your etudes are going to improve by your scale practice. The more you practice your fundamentals and scales, the better all your music will become. So, fortunately, we only have one pinky key that we have to use in E flat major, which is your right. So there's no need to really mark that unless you can't remember which side of the clarinet your E flat is on. And don't forget that accidentals carry through. So you have E flats and B flats. So all E flats and B flats that you see in these two measures they carry through the bar. And then we go to C minor, which is the relative minor of E flat major, and it has an E flat in the arpeggio. So make sure you're getting all your E flats, and that means you will have a pinky cross. So we're going to go ahead and mark our E flats. I'm going to do it on the ascent and the descent with little R's, which means all C's on around it are going to have to be with the left. There, so you can see all the C's in this arpeggio that are in the middle of the staff are going to have to be with the left pinky rather than the right pinky. Great. Moving on. It suddenly gets much harder. This is B major. Yay. And this is my least favorite arpeggio in the history of arpeggios. I find B major to be just exceedingly challenging, and it's relative minor G sharp. Also unfun. So, we have, this is where some sliding gets to happen. You get to do a little bit of sliding in G sharp minor, but that's it. A flat major and G sharp minor are the only keys in which we actually get to slide around. So, B with the middle finger, no need to fork here. D sharp, F sharp, B. It's another thing to remember is that, like, when things look hard to read in chords, in broken chords, there are only 3 notes, 3 pitches in each group. So this is B, F sharp, and, oh, sorry, I did them out of order. B, D sharp, and F sharp. If you're playing a pitch other than a B, D sharp, or F sharp in these 2 measures, you're doing it wrong. So, but as long as you're playing a B, D sharp, or F sharp, you're probably doing it right. Just keep that in mind. And just like with C minor, we're going to go ahead and write in all the D sharps, because D sharp and E flat are the same fingering with a little R, which means this B you'll have to do with the left. Same here. Starting to get a little crowded. And all these D's are sharp, even though, because it carries through the measure, right? B, left, right, and F sharps. Same here again. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right. I write in all my pinkies all the time when I'm playing, and I've been doing this for quite a while. If you think there's any chance that you will forget which pinky to use, write it down. All right, and then we have G sharp minor, B major is relative minor. Key that is spawn of Satan, I'm pretty sure. Starting to have G sharps, B, and D sharps. So just like this, we had B sharps, D sharps, and F sharps. We have G sharp, B, and D sharp. So if you're playing G sharp, B, or D sharp in these 2 measures, you're probably, or 3 measures, you're probably doing it right. If not, you're probably doing it wrong. So the fun part happens when we have to go from G sharp to B. G sharp, B, you do that with your right, left, right, left. Yeah. Nope, that's right. That's it doesn't work that way. I wish it did. So remember that D sharp only has 1 fingering and it's on the right, but so does G sharp. G sharp is only on the left. So if we go ahead and write R and L for D sharp and G sharp, and then go back and figure out these D's or B's. All right, so we have a left for B, and a left, and then a left for the B, and left, and then this is where it gets weird, right? Because we have an L and then an R, so this one has to slide. It either needs to also be an R or also needs to be an L. This is one of those moments we're going to take advantage of the fact we have an articulation there. We're going to do it on the left. There is also an alternate fingering, but it's kind of a hit or miss fingering, and that's like your 1 and 1 B flat. There's a 2 plus 2 G sharp. It is even less successful than 1 and 1 B flat, so you'll definitely want to make sure that it works on your instrument before you do it. And you would want to use this 2 and 2 for, ugh, this is so tough. So much going on. You'd want to use it for this one on the way up. B, D sharp, G sharp, 2 and 2, A, B, B, or D sharp, B, D sharp. So you can use 2 plus 2, G sharp here, if you can make it work. If not, then you're gonna have to take advantage of this articulation, and do a little sliding. Da-da-dee. Don't forget these high Ds are sharp. Dee 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 dee. And here it happens again. Left, right, left, right, right. So this is another one. So I think it's actually much easier to slide on the way down, going from left to left, left B to left G sharp. Going down is way easier. You don't really need 2 plus 2, but if you do want to use 2 plus 2, that's where you would do it, on this G sharp right here. D sharp B, G sharp B, 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 boo. And then we're in E major. Oh, so nice. Only have 4 sharps instead of 5. Blah! Do 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 do. This one only goes up to B, so that's nice. Then we have, oh yeah, and all the B's I would do on the right hand, just to streamline yourself. It's the only pinky key you have anyway. And then we have C sharp. Again, C sharp is the only pinky key you have, which I would also do in the right hand. When there's only one pinky key, I always default to the right hand just for the sake of streamlining. And on the C sharp, remember, it's in the altissimo register, but you don't want to use your pinky. No pinky. You want to use your pinky on all the other altissimo notes, but not C sharp because it's too sharp already. I know it feels weird to end on a bar line, so I don't think you'll be penalized if you land on this A. If you really need a spot to land, I think that's fine. I wouldn't penalize you if I were the judge, because that's how I like to practice too. All right, and we have one more exercise in the close set for set 2, and it is super fun. I really like these exercises, and I think it's fun to learn the whole thing. If you get a chance, like in the summertime when you're not preparing for anything necessarily, you just need to keep getting better, I would learn this exercise. It's super fun, and your thirds, arpeggios, all that good stuff. All right, here we are. So various patterns on the tonic chord in all keys. So we can do this one in E again. And then it's relative minor, which is C sharp. Later, so this articulation pattern is really important. You can see these tiny little points. Those are just like really staccato. So you definitely want to be really crisp with this. But if you're going to go with any kind of speed, much like we did with our rose etude, our fast rose etude, practice it slowly and legato. You can always crisp it up later. Don't forget that G sharps carry through. They carry through the measure and the octave. So if you need to write in G sharps, please do. All right, there's not much to know. Definitely have to do your B's with your right hand because we have this G sharp, which, as you know, only is available in the left hand. So you definitely have to do all your pinky B's with your right hand. Getting sloppy. Okay. And now C sharp. C sharp is really gnarly. You'll notice in my performance that I might take like just the slightest, teeniest bit of time there because I've already written this in for my own practice. It's so hard to slide around. You definitely have to do left for C sharp, much like you have to do left for G sharp because it's the same fingering. You have right, left, left. Unfortunately, 2 plus 2 doesn't work for C sharp. It'll just come out. It won't work, so you definitely have to slide here. It kind of works on G sharp because it's up the octave or up the register, up the 12th, whatever. shame on you, Sanders, for calling it an octave. So just do left C sharp here and left here, and you have an articulation. You have a tiniest bit of space to get down there. So take advantage of the articulation to quickly move your left pinky into the right spot. Left, right, right, left, right, left, right. Bleh. Left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right. Oh, what a nightmare. Just take your time. If you need to go slow, again, it's better to go too slow than too fast. Dum, ding, da, ding, dum, bum, ba, dum, bum, bum. I think if you're not sure where to start, of course, I think I've said this a lot, but make sure you're starting from a place where you won't get any wrong notes. So for me, that might be about 72. Dum, dee, da, eighth note equals 72. And then maybe getting up to up to 132. Well, I think that concludes everything that you need to know about the Missouri All-State Audition when it comes to Set 2. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out in the comments or shoot me an email at larkin@cleverclarinetist.com or visit my website for more tips and tricks and all things clarinet. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.